What an adjustment the last few months have been. I know most of us probably say they would do so many more things if they just had more time. Well, so far, I've taken a masterclass in photo editing, I've binged watched shows that have been on my list for years, and I have dedicated time to creating my virtual reality science field trips. But I definitely miss seeing my friends, and I'm really excited to have people over my brand new home. Whether it's just to bring over the 4 different types of bread they learned how to make, or just escaping from feeling so trapped and imprisoned, we're all looking forward to the end of this quarantine. As unique as the pandemic may seem, it's just emphasizing that how we deal with change is very individualized. If you've struggled to do something differently, or you just feel like you can't, I'm hoping today that I can show you that you can. I struggled immensely with change. So many attempts to do new things ended with me falling back into my own ways. Nothing ever seemed to stick, and I had all but given up on trying to break that cycle. Until one day when I became legitimately worried that if I didn't put my foot down, and if I didn't change, I was going to die. Now, I don't have children, but I've generally heard that when you have a child, you think everything is going to be perfect. You think they're the smartest and best looking, most athletic human being to have ever been born. I'm pretty sure that's why my mom captured every single moment of the first few years of my life on these. And these years were great, but as an elementary school teacher, my mom recognized that I was developing some behaviors that worried her. I was ultimately diagnosed and given medication for ADD in elementary school, and I had people reading tests to me before I knew it in a separate location. Although I'm a teacher, I was not a perfect student. I was a struggling reader. Math and I are never going to be friends, and I can't count how many times it said easily distracted in class on my report cards. I struggled with feeling different because I took medication, stupid for all the extra attention I used to receive from teachers, and a loser as a target of school bullies. My physical appearance was more alarming than my academic. When I started medication, people started to notice my increase in weight. So starting in elementary school, I also developed some really bad habits. I would throw out my mom's healthy lunch in favor of cafeteria food. I know. I would hide snacks from my friends, at the after-school program, and at home, just so I could get more. By the end of 6th grade, my superpower was making the half-gallon of ice cream disappear and then making my mom question if we had eaten it or if it even had existed. I was 175 pounds in 7th grade when I stepped onto the scale for my yearly physical. I could still hear my mom's concerned voice when she asked, "When is he going to lose weight?" And I still see Dr. Lawrence turning around and softly saying, "He will when he's ready to." I didn't understand the problem yet, so in my mind I was like, great, sounds like a plan. If I'm just going to change when I want to, can more ice cream please? Between 7th and 12th grade, I gained about 100 more pounds, finishing high school at 270. I used to look at all the pictures taken and I would see how big I looked in my giant velour sweatsuit next to my classmates, which ironically made me feel so small and insignificant. I graduated high school in the middle of my class with no real ambition to go to college. My parents knew that I didn't want to go, but luckily they knew what was best for me. I tried to look at college as a fresh start to be someone. I had so many fond memories of my mom who touched the lives of all of her students and how people would literally hunt her down to tell her that. So I decided to double major in chemistry and adolescent education. And I joined a fraternity my first semester just in hopes of feeling significant. I even lost 50 pounds my first semester in college instead of gaining the infamous freshman 15. Now you may be thinking this is the inspirational part, but it's not. When I went home my first semester, a lot of feelings I had tried to move past just boomeranged back in a really big way. My GPA was low and I barely spoke to any of the new people that I met. That same feeling of being irrelevant just grabbed me by the hand and put some ice cream into it. I fell back into my old habits hard. I decided right before returning to school that I would drop chemistry because I felt too inferior to complete the 3 calculus courses. Earth science needed basic math, and it was the first class that I felt smart during high school, so I switched my major. The following semester, I really liked Geology 120, but not as much as my unlimited meal plan. And slowly, the campus hills became mountains, and I would need to take breaks on steps or just panic to catch my breath so my friends wouldn't see my struggle. Going to class quickly became a game of finding the seat with the most room between the chair and the desk, and I couldn't even use the flip-up desk in the lecture hall because it would just lay on an angle on top of my stomach. I started to lie to my friends and tell them that I couldn't do things because I was busy. When the truth was, I was ashamed of my body and how far I had fallen. When I used to look in the mirror, all I saw was every imperfection. My body just spilling over my waistline and my shirts fitting me like a straitjacket. When I saw photos, my attention was drawn immediately to how much bigger I was than my friends. That big victory that I had of losing 50 pounds was short-lived. By the end of my junior year, I gained it all back, and then another 50 pounds more. This picture was taken in May 2008, when I was only 20 years old. Everything from the moment I woke up was hard. Getting up meant rocking back and forth to gain enough momentum to sit upright, and then another big push to stand. Tying my shoe meant moving my belly out of the way and then lifting my leg up onto something so I can try and reach my laces. The thought of falling or even kneeling down terrified me because of how exceptionally hard it was for me to get back up. Even the most well-intentioned comments from my friends sent me into an internal spiral that left me feeling subhuman. And so, for example, I interpreted being called huggable to suggest that I was basically a stuffed animal to them, not a real person. And so my tipping point, pun intended, was the summer I came home from college after this picture was taken. I was managing a restaurant and I was filling in for a delivery driver. While I was heading down the block, I noticed my vision was starting to get blurry and I could feel some pressure behind my eyes. I didn't think much of it at first, but then when it continued, I knew something was wrong. So after visiting my doctor, I was sent to get an MRI of my head with what's called a contrast dye. The contrast dye is a substance that they pumped into my veins to confirm that the blood was circulating to my head properly. I was also having really, really bad knee and ankle issues, which made everything, especially work, far more difficult. I could feel my body just starting to break down. And so the next day started like the rest. I tried to stretch out my work shirt and then squeeze into it before draping my apron over my stomach in a way that hid how tight that shirt was. I started that day at work by waiting on tables in a busy dining room. Fitting in between those tables was a lot like the desks in college. It was honestly mortifying trying to lift onto my toes and then lift my stomach up to avoid bumping into chairs or customers. And while I not only bumped into a few chairs and tables and customers, I even bumped poor Sylvester, who was just trying to wash the dishes. After the rush was over, my vision began to blur, but thankfully I was at the front counter where I can sit down. And that time, it was so bad. It was worse than it had ever been before, and I could literally barely see my hands in front of me. And that was my breaking point. The moment where I thought to myself, if this keeps going, I'm gonna die. I turned to my coworker and I said, I'm not gonna be fat anymore. And Dr. Lawrence was right. I was finally ready to do something. Okay, so now I've made the decision, my what, and a compelling reason to do so, my why. But the big question that had always eluded me was how? If diet and exercise are so easy, then why do we have such a rapidly growing obesity problem? Plus, I felt like I was running a marathon just getting out of bed, and I was surrounded by unlimited pizza at work. So I knew I wasn't going to be like one of those infomercials where the screen flashes and you look down and you're like, surprise, magic six-pack and a model girlfriend on my shoulder. And, you know, when we smile, the light just sparkles off with that audible ting. Now, even though I lost 50 pounds back in college, it wasn't exactly the healthiest way of doing it. I also wasn't as heavy. And with so many more health problems, repeating that was not viable. So thinking about even 10 or 5 pounds was impossible. 1 would be the goal. I still ran into the question, so how do you even lose 1 pound? So I started with the least intimidating thing I had thought about, which was switching my regular daily pasta over to whole wheat pasta. Gas was at an all-time high of about $5 a gallon, so I decided to ride my bike to work since it was a short distance and I enjoyed riding as a kid. Those 2 tiny changes helped me lose a pound and gave me the idea that maybe I can even lose 1 more. The next step I took was to add some veggies and take away a few noodles. I joined the gym and rode my bike there just to lift weights, but I promised myself no cardio. Eventually I lost enough to get some recognition from other people, and that was really motivating to keep going. I was amazed that my small incremental changes led to about 40 pounds of weight loss over 1 summer. But most importantly, I finally believed in myself. If you want to achieve something, set small goals, but they need to come from you. You'll never have a shortage of people giving you their opinion or just telling you what you should or shouldn't do. But you're the one who needs to decide your own path and buy into your own goals, which means you need to set them. You're not going to score every shot you take. Defeat is going to feel like a horse pill to swallow, and our natural tendency is to wash it down a little bit more easily with an excuse. But like one of my high school teachers used to always say, excuses are the nails that build homes of failure. And in the past, excuses had been acceptable behavior, but it wasn't serving me now. When I stepped on the scale and lost nothing or even gained, I had to hold myself accountable. I had to own my actions, accept them, learn, and then pick up my next actionable step. Excuses made by other people are well-intentioned, usually, but they're just another nail. My friends and family told me so many times that I wasn't overweight when I was struggling to work and I was having problems with my vision. More recently, people just add nails with reasons such as, you're too skinny, or I like the way you look now, or no, you're doing too much. And in reality, that's just a projection of their own preferences and insecurities. So choose to listen to people that support and accept your personal definition of success and root for you. I was lucky enough to have my 2 best friends, Mike and Adam, to be there for me. And no matter what, they were there to listen and support me during frustrations, but they didn't accept my excuses. I knew they would call me out, and so I was a little uncomfortable to even say an excuse, which honestly helped me recognize that I was attempting to make one. But not all excuses are created equally. You have to focus on what's called your locus of control. An external locus is something beyond your control, like the weather. I couldn't control if it rained outside and made it unreasonable to ride my bike to work. You also have an internal locus of control, which means you do have control over that. If someone made unhealthy food and I knew I was going to be around pizza all day, I had the ability to prepare my own lunch. I could ask a cook to make something different, or I can learn how to cook myself. I controlled if I snuck into the freezer to eat the ice cream, not my boss for buying it for the restaurant. The point is, identify what you have influence over in a situation and what you believe you are willing to change. And find people you can trust to support you. Making change looks like our stock market. There's going to be setbacks, there are going to be rallies, and the future is uncertain. Who knew the day that I looked at my coworker and made a statement that I didn't fully believe in was going to radically change my life. Losing 130 pounds wasn't even my real victory. The confidence I gained spread into all areas of my life. I applied those same concepts of creating these small personal steps to accomplish a lot more goals. I enjoy reading after I found books that I genuinely enjoyed. And each summer, I try to read one more than the year before. I also gained the confidence to go for 2 master's degrees and now possibly a doctorate. Those weren't my initial goals, but they became a reality after conquering those small changes, and I became ready for more because I was confident to do so as a result. Having the right people around you is essential. I'm thankful for the people that I surrounded myself with. Remember, the comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing worthwhile ever grows there. You've got this. Thank you.